The story begins with the gossip permeates the halls of the noble estate, whispered by maids who believe themselves unheard by the master of the house. They speak of a lord within the knight's order who possesses nothing but a handsome face and noble blood, mocking his lack of martial prowess. Leonhardt, the subject of this ridicule, offers only a self-deprecating laugh in response to the rumors, admitting he is no match for his peers, which the maids interpret as further proof of his incompetence. Nearby, a woman listens to the sigh of her husband and the chatter of the servants, resigning herself to the reality that she will spend the remainder of her life in this house surrounded by such idle talk. The maids continue their verbal assault, noting that their lord lost yet another sparring match to a junior knight, questioning how often such failures occur. Claria reflects on her own history of inadequacy, recalling how she attempted to compensate for her lack of talent with sheer hard work, yet it yielded nothing. 20 years ago, on a tumultuous stormy night, she was born into a prestigious family of white mages, a lineage expecting greatness. However, fate proved cruel, as she possessed absolutely no aptitude for magic, a deficiency that branded her a failure in the eyes of her kin. Her parents, who once held high hopes, eventually abandoned those expectations, their disappointment manifesting in cold remarks that her very face irritated them. To a woman deemed worthless by her own blood, a marriage proposal arrived from a strange knight who desired her as his bride despite her inability to use magic. This knight, Leonhardt, the third son of the noble Warwick family, hailed from a lineage celebrated for their brilliant military achievements. Yet, he stood as an anomaly within his own house, boasting only of returning from war without a single scratch, devoid of any battlefield accomplishments to his name. He was known solely for his physical attractiveness and his pedigree, leading others to conclude that a useless woman like Claria was a perfect match for such a man. Thus, the worthless daughter and the cowardly knight were wed, bound together by their shared lack of renown. Claria stares blankly, convincing herself that seeking acknowledgement from anyone is a futile waste of time. She believes that no matter how intensely she trains or studies, the effort remains meaningless, leading her to a state of emotional numbness where she claims not to care about anything anymore. Gazing out the window, she observes Leonhardt in the garden, swinging a sword in solitary training. She questions the point of his exertion, dismissing it as meaningless while the rhythmic clang of his blade echoes through the glass. He continues to practice despite the lack of an audience, his movements persistent and repetitive. Suddenly, the weather shifts, and rain begins to fall, catching Claria's attention. She calls out from the shelter of the mansion, urging him to hurry inside as the downpour intensifies. Looking around, she realizes the maids have vanished, leaving no one to stop his reckless behavior in the storm. Leonhardt pauses, seemingly dazed by the sudden deluge, finally acknowledging the change in weather. Claria rushes out to him, a towel in hand, and begins to dry his soaked hair, chiding him for not coming in sooner. He thanks her for the towel, his demeanor calm despite the soaking. As she dries him, Claria's eyes wander to his torso, noticing the defined musculature beneath his wet shirt. She realizes that a sturdy body like his is not something obtained overnight, forcing her to acknowledge the physical evidence of his discipline. He remarks that she is also soaked, suggesting they head inside, but she remains fixated on her question. She asks why he tries so hard, noting that she hears the sounds of his solo training every morning and night. She admits that while he comes from a privileged environment, his physical build and discipline are achievements he earned entirely on his own. She observes that he does not look like someone trying to rise through laziness, contradicting the rumors that plague his reputation. Leonhardt smiles wryly, asking if she had previously thought of him as just a cowardly knight. Flustered, Claria apologizes, calling it a weird thing to ask, but Leonhardt admits he is a coward because he lacked the will. He clarifies that he does not want to lose to himself and refuses to give up on fighting with his own hands. He acknowledges her stubbornness, stating he doesn't dislike it, and declares his intention to work hard to become someone she can rely on. He vows that this time, he wants to be the one who protects her. Claria is taken aback by his words, particularly the phrase, "this time," but before she can inquire further, thunder crashes nearby. Leonhardt instinctively reacts to the lightning, his expression shifting to one of concern. He reveals that he understands the feeling of inadequacy because he once lacked the will as well. Without warning, he scoops Claria up into his arms to shield her from the storm and the mud, carrying her toward the mansion. She protests, flailing and demanding to be put down, insisting she is not a small animal or a stuffed toy. He ignores her struggles, reasoning that the last thunderclap was too close and he cannot allow her clothes to get any wetter. He carries her effortlessly, as if gravity holds no sway over him, walking all the way from the garden into the house without setting her down. Once inside, Claria fumes, calling him the worst for manhandling her, while noting the maids are still absent. As he prepares to brew tea, she notices blood dripping from his hand. She panics, fearing he injured himself while carrying her, asking if he dropped her, but quickly realizes the wound is from his sword training. She scolds him, explaining that even small wounds can invite bacteria and lead to inflammation if left untreated. He dismisses it as nothing serious, but she insists it is, grabbing his hand to clean it. She lectures him that if his strength is low, his natural healing won't work well, potentially leading to complications. Claria continues her ministrations, telling him that if he doesn't want to give up on fighting, he must take care of his own body. She warns that neglecting such possibilities could worsen his condition, forcing him to promise to be more careful. As she tends to his hand, treating the blistered skin, she murmurs that he is so dependable. Leonhardt, caught off guard by the compliment, thanks her quietly. The intimate moment is interrupted by the return of the maids, who apologize profusely for leaving the estate for so long. They explain that the rain started out of nowhere and they heard troubling news. They remind Claria that once she has completed her greetings at the upcoming event, she can leave early, acknowledging that dealing with nobles is tiring. Leonhardt enters the room, dressed formally, and tells Claria not to overdo it, to which she replies that the same applies to him. He promises to pick her up when it is over, admitting he is worried. It is revealed that today represents the tea party at the Lindberghs' estate. Before leaving, Leonhardt leans in close, his face inches from hers, and whispers her name. He tells her that he will be going now because she is so beautiful, leaving Claria blushing and confused by his sudden boldness. She wonders what on earth is wrong with him as her heart races. At the tea party, the atmosphere is thick with judgment. Guests whisper that a husband with only looks and a wife with no magic make a perfect, dull pair. They scrutinize Claria's gloomy dress and expression, labeling the couple as the Warwick family's disgrace. Claria stands amidst the gossip, realizing that lately, Leonhardt has been completely throwing her off her pace. She reflects on how spoiled she was back at her family's house, numb to everything, but now she feels a prickle in her chest. She acknowledges that this feeling doesn't feel so bad, and for some reason, even this gloomy tea party feels worth getting through for his sake. Suddenly, a scream pierces the air. Panic erupts as guests warn of monsters appearing nearby, aggressive and dangerous. The attendees realize they are under attack even in a place like this. People scream that if they wait for the knights, they will be torn apart, urging someone to call for help immediately. A massive, wolf-like beast crashes into the venue, shattering the peace. In the chaos, a man turns to Claria, demanding that since she is a mage's daughter, she should at least be able to stall the beast. Claria trembles, thinking that if she could do it she already would have, but she has no magic anywhere in her body. The monster lunges, and Claria cringes in fear, wishing she had talked to Leonhardt more before this end. A powerful impact shakes the ground, creating a cloud of dust. As the debris clears, Leonhardt stands before her, having intercepted the beast's attack with his bare hand. He holds Claria close, shielding her from the force that threatened to fling her away. He asks if she is hurt and apologizes for scaring her. Claria, stunned, stammers that she is okay. Leonhardt confesses that he was scared. Claria attempts to rationalize the situation, thinking that Leonhardt's power is just slightly stronger than the average person, perhaps even more than her father, but he corrects her. He reveals that he was born with abnormal strength. He recalls his father's stern instructions to never show this power to anyone until he could control it properly, warning that he could hurt someone at any time. Because of this, Leonhardt had found himself praying again, suppressing his true nature. A flashback ensues, transporting the narrative to a cobblestone street at night where a young Leonhardt encounters a crying girl. He wonders if she ran away from home or fell, hearing her sobbing hiccups. The girl, a young Claria, cries that she is already so tired and questions if she can even become a knight or wield a sword properly. She laments that she is the only one who can't use magic despite her prestigious lineage. Leonhardt, observing her, notes that she isn't just whining. He sees a thick magic book full of bookmarks, evidence of her desperate effort. The young Claria cries that she doesn't want her mother to hit her anymore, sobbing about how hard she is trying. Young Leonhardt, moved by her plight, offers to walk her home, asking if she can stand. He realizes that despite her despair, she is fighting, and he hates the idea of giving up even more than she does. He is struck by the resilience contained within her tiny body. Back in the present, Leonhardt holds Claria, realizing she doesn't remember that meeting. He reveals internally that he wanted to repay Claria, the one who saved his heart that night. Because of seeing her struggle, he learned to wield a sword without problems, inspired by her refusal to quit. He looks at her with intense devotion and asks her to let him protect her for the rest of her life. He admits that his father's words about hurting someone had always echoed in his mind, robbing him of confidence, but today, that hesitation finally disappeared. He feels like he can stand on solid ground again. Claria, moved by his declaration, resolves to do her best as well. She insists that he must start taking care of himself so that he stops being so careless with his body. Following the incident, the Duke, rather than being furious about the damage to his garden, expresses gratitude. He dismisses the destruction of the garden, stating he is just glad no one got hurt. The rumor of Leonhardt's immense strength travels to the Night Order and reaches the king's ears. Leonhardt is formally asked to serve on the front lines, utilizing his strength for the kingdom. He accepts the command with a firm, "Yes, sir." Claria acknowledges that she still cannot use magic, but her knowledge is recognized, leading to her assignment to the Knights Medical Corps. She reflects that Leonhardt fought for her, and now it is her turn to fight for him. Just thinking about what she can do for him makes every day shine brighter. They stand together, a couple once deemed useless, now finding their purpose and strength in one another. The vibrant, petal-strewn boundaries of the village of Alba, a locale famed for its botanical abundance and known widely as the Flower Garden. A horse-drawn carriage navigates the floral streets, carrying Lord Leon and his attendant, Charlot, into their new domain. The village chief, eager and obsequious, welcomes the new lord, boasting that the overwhelming flora is the village's singular pride. While Lord Leon remains silent within the carriage, peering out at the rumors made manifest, the village truly overflows with blooms in every corner. However, the welcome is cut short by Charlot, who steps out to intercept the enthusiastic chief with a practiced excuse. Charlot, sporting a strained but polite smile, claims his master has suffered from stomach trouble since the morning and is feeling quite unwell. The chief, oblivious to the deflection, attempts to offer advice on marriage proposals, noting that he has been surrounded by flowers for years and knows the local customs well. Charlot swiftly bypasses the conversation, introducing himself as the attendant and requesting directions to the manor so his master may rest. The chief obliges, guiding the carriage away while muttering about the exhausting journey. News of the lord's arrival spreads through the village like wildfire, igniting gossip among the women that the new ruler is unmarried. They whisper of his capability and youth, their interest piqued by his high status. Among those listening is Freya, a woman of sharp ambition who views the village men as boring and sees the lord's arrival as a golden opportunity. She abandons her plans of moving to the capital to utilize her abilities, deciding instead that marrying the lord would be a suitable alternative. She rushes to greet him, noting the lively streets, while her younger sister, Lilith, watches from the shadows. Lilith, resigned and melancholic, feels the commotion has nothing to do with her, wondering what kind of man could cause such a stir. Her mother interrupts her thoughts, sternly warning Lilith not to show her face to the new lord. Lilith retreats behind a door, exhaling a heavy sigh as she contemplates her existence in a world where people live by the blessings of spirits and the four elements: fire, water, wind, and earth. While her sister Freya is talented and blessed, Lilith was born almost completely powerless, a fact that her mother fears would disappoint the lord if discovered. Treated as little more than a servant in her own home, Lilith has endured a lifetime of comparison to her capable half-sister. However, Lilith possesses one singular, uncontrollable ability. When her emotions rise, flowers bloom spontaneously around her. She views this power as useless, a mere parlor trick in a world of elemental magic. Despite her self-deprecation, she prepares a bouquet, intending to offer it as a hidden gift to the lord. At the manor, the atmosphere is starkly different. Charlot observes the grounds and notes the complete absence of flowers, suggesting that the villagers hope the lord will enjoy their gifts all the more because of this scarcity. Leon, standing amidst bookshelves, stares at the bouquet Charlot holds, questioning the concept of more flowers, with a dark expression. He reveals the reason for the barren manor. He cannot properly control his fire elemental powers, and thus, there is no point in planting anything as he inevitably incinerates them. Later, Lilith accidentally collides with Lord Leon in a hallway, the impact sending her bouquet flying. Leon catches her to steady her, and she apologizes profusely. He instructs Charlot to take the flowers to his room, dismissing the encounter as he claims to have urgent business, though he was merely going for a walk to clear his head. Lilith, flustered, offers the bouquet as a gesture of welcome. Suddenly, Freya interjects, introducing herself and noting that she lives near the church. Freya feigns concern, apologizing for Leon's fatigue, while internally swooning over his cool and composed demeanor. Lilith's mother appears, ordering Lilith to go buy groceries for dinner, effectively removing her from the Lord's presence. As Lilith leaves, the villagers gossip about Freya's beauty and her chances with the Lord. In the marketplace, Lilith wanders alone until she bumps into a hooded figure. It is Lord Leon, attempting to move incognito. He recognizes her instantly as Lilith, though she initially mistakes him for a customer. Before they can converse, local village men accost Lilith, mocking her as the useless girl and demanding she leave the village. They taunt her lack of power, asking if she can use any magic yet, and grab her arm roughly. Lilith pleads for them to stop, but they shove her, causing her to lose her balance. Leon steps in, catching Lilith before she falls, his expression darkening with anger. He demands to know if she harmed them, to which the bullies scoff, explaining that she was born without elemental power, unlike her talented sister Freya. They are shocked to realize the man intervening is the Lord himself. Leon reprimands them coldly, stating that judging a person's worth by their abilities is the thinking of a fool. He turns his attention to Lilith, asking if she is all right. Overwhelmed by his kindness, Lilith's emotions surge, causing small flowers to pop into existence around her. She feels unworthy of even looking at him, perceiving him as not just powerful but gentle. She thanks him shyly and hurries away, leaving a trail of small blooms. Leon stands amidst the petals, holding the flowers she gave him earlier. He realizes with astonishment that the flowers are not burning, marking the first time he has been able to view a flower up close without destroying it. Lilith returns home, her heart racing, only to be confronted by Freya. Freya is incensed, having heard that Lilith met the Lord at the market and that he had his attendant carry her flowers. Freya berates Lilith, telling her not to get ideas and that the basement suits her just fine. Suddenly, a knock echoes through the house. The Lord has arrived. Freya panics, assuming he is there for her, and rushes to get ready. Freya meets Leon at the door, presenting him with flowers she grew in her garden, apologizing for the wait. Leon looks confused, unsure of what is happening. As Freya hands him the bouquet, the flowers instantly ignite and incinerate in his hands due to his uncontrolled fire aura. Leon apologizes immediately, stating bluntly that it is not Freya he is there for. He looks past the stunned sister and asks if there is another daughter in the house. Ignoring Freya's confusion, Leon enters the home and heads straight for the back, locating the basement door. Inside her small, dim room, Lilith sits with a book, trying to suppress her feelings, telling herself she will probably never see him again. She reminisces about how wonderful he was, flowers popping into existence around her in response to her longing. Leon knocks and enters the room. Lilith is startled, rising to her feet as he steps into her sanctuary. He observes the room, noting that despite the gloom, it is filled with flowers. Without hesitation, Leon asks Lilith to come live in his manor. He explains his past trauma. As a child, he possessed overwhelming power he couldn't control. Once, out of the sheer joy of seeing a beautiful garden, his excitement caused him to burn it all down. Since then, he developed a trauma toward plants, burning them unintentionally even when calm. However, he reveals that Lilith's flowers are different. As Lilith stands before him, her heart racing, large vibrant flowers bloom around them. Leon points out that not a single one of these flowers is burning. He validates her existence, telling her that even if she cannot use the other elements, she can bloom beautiful, vibrant flowers full of life. Lilith, who thought her power was completely useless, is stunned to find it is exactly what he needs. Leon reaches out to her, expressing his desire to fill his life with her and her flowers. Lilith realizes that the flowers blooming from her feelings for him are something he truly needs. With tears in her eyes, she accepts, asking to be allowed to bloom by his side forever. This marks the beginning of a love that would always bloom warmly, bridging the gap between a destructive fire and a resilient flower. Yaju stands in a workspace filled with the tools of an apothecary, holding a newly completed potion vial aloft. She wipes a bead of sweat from her forehead, exhaling a breath of relief that the arduous task is finally finished. Her internal monologue reveals a selfless motivation. She dedicates her efforts to the hope that her creation might help others, even if only in a small way. The narrative shifts to provide context for Yaju's situation, revealing a stark contrast between her gentle demeanor and her harsh reality. Yaju stands before a haughty noblewoman who berates her for her slow progress. The noblewoman, dressed in an elaborate gown with a high collar, scoffs at Yaju's heritage, insulting Yaju's mother by calling her a creepy witch and asserting that the daughter is likely useless for anything other than potion making. Narration reveals that Yaju was raised by a servant named Aunt Clypha after her parents died in an accident when she was very young. Despite the verbal abuse, Yaju clings to the legacy of her mother, who left behind valuable recipes for various potions. The noblewoman issues a demanding request. Yaju must craft a universal elixir. The ingredients required for this legendary substance are not easily obtained. They grow deep within a dense forest, a place shrouded in fear due to rumors of a man-eating dragon taking residence there. The noblewoman manipulates Yaju's inherent altruism, arguing that producing this elixir would save countless lives. When Yaju hesitates, intimidated by the terrifying prospect of the dragon, the noblewoman dismisses the threat, claiming the dragon sightings are merely rumors and that no one has actually seen the beast. She preys on Yaju's desire to be useful, questioning if she truly wants to help people. Succumbing to the pressure and her own sense of duty, Yaju ventures into the forest. The trees loom tall and thick around her, casting long shadows as the day transitions into evening. She pulls her hood tighter, worrying about her ability to return home before total darkness engulfs the woods. The isolation brings forth memories of when her parents were alive, a bittersweet recollection of a happier past. She admits to herself that this is her first time venturing this deep into the wild, and while fear grips her, she steels her resolve with the thought of her mother's precious potions and the potential to aid someone in need. Her introspection is abruptly shattered when her foot snags on a heavy object on the forest floor. She stumbles, and upon looking down, discovers a man with long, dark hair collapsed amidst the undergrowth. He lies motionless, his clothes disheveled. Yaju recoils in shock, her mind racing with the possibility that the rumored dragon attacked him. She observes that he is injured and appears to be in significant pain. Confusion washes over her as she questions why a person would be found in such a remote, dangerous location known for dragon activity. Faced with a critical decision, Yaju reaches for the single bottle of potion she brought with her. It is a valuable resource, but the immediate suffering of the stranger takes precedence. She unstoppers the ornate vial, a drop of the liquid poised at the rim. As she administers the draught to the unconscious man, she silently pleads for the medicine to be effective. The scene transitions to the man's perspective as consciousness slowly returns. He perceives a gentle warmth and a soft voice, his vision clearing to reveal Yaju hovering over him. He realizes he is awake and safe, muttering his gratitude. He reaches out, his hand large against her face, and asks who she is. Yaju, overwhelmed and flustered, tries to speak but is muffled by his hand. Some time later, Yaju sits by a bedside, thanking the man for his hospitality. The setting has shifted from the forest floor to a well-furnished room within a mansion. The man, now identified as Klux, explains that he had no choice but to bring her there after she passed out from exhaustion the previous night. Yaju is disoriented, apologizing profusely for causing trouble. Klux dismisses her apology, instead directing the gratitude toward her. He reveals that the rare potion she sacrificed saved his life. He introduces himself and insists on repaying her, offering her the freedom to use his mansion however she pleases. Yaju is taken aback by his kindness. It is the first time anyone has thanked her so sincerely. She feels a surge of happiness at having been able to help. However, practical concerns intrude on the moment. She worries about returning to the forest to gather the remaining materials for the elixir and the dangers of wandering aimlessly. Yet, as she looks at Klux, she notices a profound sadness in his expression as he mentions being the only one living in this vast, secluded place. She tentatively brings up the rumors of the man-eating dragon, gauging his reaction. Klux confirms the rumors exist but claims he has never seen one himself, his face betraying a complex emotion that Yaju interprets as fear. Driven by a mix of empathy and necessity, Yaju decides to stay for a while. She utilizes the forest's resources, which Klux generously allows her to harvest. She finds high-quality ingredients, identifying plants capable of neutralizing poison and others suitable for the universal elixir. To reciprocate his hospitality, she asks to borrow the kitchen. She prepares a toasted sandwich, the bread golden brown, and offers it to Klux. Klux stares at the food, questioning if he is really allowed to eat it, indicating a life deprived of simple shared joys. Yaju encourages him, noting he should eat vegetables as well. Klux takes a bite, and the experience visibly moves him. He declares it delicious, a compliment that flusters Yaju. He smiles gently, pointing out a crumb on the corner of her mouth. Before she can wipe it away herself, he leans in close, invading her personal space to wipe it off for her. The intimacy causes Yaju to blush furiously. Klux continues to praise her cooking, suggesting that the food tastes so good because he is finally not alone. This admission touches Yaju, reinforcing the bond forming between them. A week passes in this peaceful domesticity. Yaju successfully gathers a significant amount of materials for healing potions. However, the reality of her external life crashes back in. She realizes she must return quickly, fearing that the stock of potions she left behind at home has run low. She informs Klux of her departure, citing that her family is waiting for her and she cannot impose on him forever. Klux is visibly shaken by this news, his face falling as he asks if she really must go. Yaju confirms she must leave, though her heart is heavy. She senses Klux's loneliness mirroring her own. Klux, resigning himself to her decision, asks if she will come back, stating he wouldn't mind her visiting anytime. Yaju promises to return, realizing that since there was no dragon, the forest is safe for travel. She vows to thank him properly next time. The scene shifts abruptly to Yaju's return to the noble estate. She enters apologetically, greeting her aunt and cousins. The reception is hostile. The noblewoman screams at her, blaming Yaju for a missed business opportunity. They reveal that because she was gone for a week, they couldn't sell potions and thus lost profit. The situation escalates as the noblewoman reveals a devastating truth. They have sold the mansion that belonged to Yaju's father. They admit to having lived entirely off the proceeds of Yaju's labor, and having exhausted those funds, they have disposed of her home. Cruelly, the noblewoman tells Yaju she no longer has a home and questions why she even bothered coming back. She commands Yaju to go wherever she wants, effectively disowning her. Tears stream down Yaju's face as the crushing reality sets in. All she ever wanted was to be of help and to feel needed, yet she was merely used and discarded. Just as despair threatens to consume her, a familiar voice cuts through the tension. Klux appears at the entrance, questioning the noblewoman's definition of family. Yaju is shocked to see him there. The nobles, observing Klux's refined appearance and attire, immediately misidentify him as an elite nobleman. Their attitude shifts instantly from aggression to sycophancy. They attempt to claim Yaju is a precious family member to ingratiate themselves with this wealthy stranger. Klux sees through their facade with contempt. He ignores them, focusing his gaze on Yaju. He admits that he followed her because he was worried. Seeing the sadness on her face confirms his fears, and he expresses regret for ever letting her leave his side. He declares openly that she is precious to him. The nobles continue to press, trying to form a connection to exploit Klux's status. Klux's patience evaporates. A terrifying, dark aura erupts from him, taking the shape of a massive, horned dragon. He reveals the truth. If they had truly believed Yaju was eaten by the dragon, she would have been his forever. He exposes himself as the man-eating dragon of legend. The nobles scream in terror as Klux issues an ultimatum. They must leave the town and country immediately and vanish, or face the consequences. The terrified family flees without hesitation. In the quiet aftermath, Klux turns to Yaju, his demeanor softening instantly. He apologizes profusely for scaring her. He clarifies that despite the fearsome title, he has never actually eaten anyone. Yaju, though stunned, realizes the truth behind the rumors. Klux explains that his injuries were caused by humans who, upon seeing a flying dragon, attack with arrows and magic out of fear. He hid his identity because he didn't want Yaju to hate him like everyone else. Yaju realizes that the gentle person she came to know and the monster of the forest are one and the same, and that his wounds were a result of persecution. Klux confesses his feelings, stating that her warmth and compassion toward a stranger touched his soul. He admits he couldn't help but fall in love with her. He asks her to define what she loves, and as she stammers, he asks the ultimate question: will she stay by his side? Yaju does not hesitate. She throws her arms around him, embracing the dragon in human form. She declares that she wants to stay with him too. The narrative closes on a scene of domestic bliss. Yaju and Klux are now living together in the forest mansion. Klux helps her with her work, carrying a massive bundle of herbs on his back. Yaju reflects that she is no longer alone. The villagers gossip about the high-quality medicine, unaware that the universal elixir Yaju found was not a potion, but a life of happiness and mutual support with the dragon. The final panel shows them walking together, Yaju smiling as she looks at her husband. A tale of silent resilience and hidden villainy begins within the confines of a noble estate, where the social hierarchy is brutally enforced even among sisters. Celestia, a daughter of noble blood, finds herself kneeling on the ground, her hands sifting through a pile of refuse. Her posture is one of desperation, a sharp contrast to the towering figure of her stepsister, Lilaru, who gazes down with a look of feigned shock and undisguised disdain. Lilaru mocks the scene, sneering that for a lady of standing to be rummaging through garbage is a display of filth that exposes her true nature. The verbal assault continues as Lilaru insinuates that Celestia's actions betray a lowly origin, stripping her of her dignity in the courtyard. Lilaru offers a defense dripping with insincerity, claiming she threw the item away because it smelled moldy and she assumed it was merely trash. She feigns surprise, asking her dear sister if that specific book was something she still required, her voice laced with a poisonous sweetness. The apology that follows is theatrically exaggerated, as Lilaru drags out the word, sorry, to mock Celestia's inability to respond. She shifts the blame onto the victim, suggesting that if there was a misunderstanding, Celestia should have spoken up from the beginning, fully aware that her sister possesses no voice. Lilaru sighs in annoyance, complaining that yelling at a mute wall is a waste of her energy, while Celestia trembles, unable to voice the injustice. Celestia's internal monologue reveals the chronic nature of this abuse. She counts this instance as the 8th time her personal belongings have been maliciously discarded. The sound of a door slamming punctuates the cruelty as Lilaru exits, leaving Celestia alone with the reminder that she cannot speak. Celestia reflects on the history of her suffering, noting that initially, her father and his new family were kind. Her biological mother passed away 3 years prior, leaving a void in the household. The woman who now torments her had entered the picture as a devoted figure supporting her grieving father, only to become her new mother a mere year ago, shedding her facade shortly after the marriage. The narrative shifts to the interior of the mansion, where Celestia's father, a man with a mustache and a weary expression, calls out to her. Celestia enters the room, dressed in a modest gown, to find her father waiting. He holds a letter sealed with wax, announcing that he has received an invitation from Duke Alan for a ball. The stepmother, Isabella, chides him for gathering everyone before mealtime, but her demeanor shifts instantly upon hearing the sender's name. The mention of the Duke sends a ripple of excitement through the room, prompting Lilaru and Isabella to declare that they cannot simply sit around. Isabella immediately strategizes, declaring that they must utilize this opportunity to find the Duke a bride. However, the father hesitates, noting that the Duke is rumored to hate social gatherings and is exceptionally sharp, suggesting the event is likely the doing of the Duke's mother rather than the man himself. Lilaru's imagination runs wild as she wonders what kind of man the Duke is, her mind filling with images of a silhouette close to the throne. She fantasizes about catching his eye and the elevation in status it would bring, despite her father's warning that she is rushing things. The conversation turns to logistics and appearances. Lilaru obsesses over what kind of woman the Duke prefers, fretting over clothes and fragrance. The father, trying to manage expectations, suggests that even if the Duke is out of reach, there will be other good matches at the ball. He warns them that the Duke keeps no attendance and dislikes people, making the task of catching his eye incredibly difficult. Celestia stands silently as her fate is debated. Her father turns to her, suggesting it might be better if she stayed behind, sparing herself the difficulty of the event. Isabella agrees, brutally pointing out that Celestia cannot even greet anyone and would be nothing but a disgrace to the family name. However, the father wavers, stating that it is actually Celestia who needs a good partner. Seizing the chance to attend, Lilaru interjects, promising to stay by Celestia's side on the day of the ball, masking her ambition as sisterly support. Celestia, though hurt by the assertion that she is a disgrace, feels she cannot ignore her father's feelings and agrees to go. She harbors a dark resignation, thinking that someday she won't be around anymore to burden them. The scene transitions to the grand ball. The atmosphere is thick with tension as guests whisper about Lord Reinhardt. Duke Alan, also addressed as Lord Guilford, is present but elusive. A guest asks Celestia's father about his remarriage, to which he replies with embarrassment. Amidst the swirling dancers, a man named Albert introduces himself to the stepfamily, and Lilaru finds herself trapped in conversation, unable to refuse a dance without causing a scene. Meanwhile, Lilaru scolds Celestia for acting high and mighty by remaining silent, interpreting her muteness as arrogance. A man approaches Celestia, asking for a dance despite her hesitation. Lilaru intervenes, apologizing for her sister's rudeness and dragging Celestia's reputation through the mud, claiming she looks down on people. Celestia, distressed and feeling she only causes trouble, retreats from the suffocating ballroom. Celestia finds solace in the mansion's garden, a space so beautiful it feels torn from the pages of a story. She admires the mysterious color of the roses, feeling as though she has stepped into a fairy tale. She decides to wait there until the ball concludes. Suddenly, a voice offers to escort her, and she turns to see a handsome man with light hair tied back. He points out the venue is in the other direction. Flustered and unable to speak, Celestia panics, wishing she had a pen and paper. She considers writing in the dirt with a stick but dismisses it as unladylike. To her surprise, the man produces a notepad and offers it to her. Celestia writes her apology, introducing herself as Celestia of House Reinhardt and explaining that her illness makes her unfit for social settings. She wonders how he knew she needed to write. The man reads her note and compliments her elegant penmanship, noting it is very easy to read. Celestia flushes with happiness, surprised to be complimented rather than mocked for her condition. The man remarks that a literate woman is rare but not something to be condemned. Suddenly he responds to a thought she hasn't written down, calling her clever for writing back and forth. Celestia internally thinks he is annoyingly smug, and he immediately tells her to stop mocking him with that tone. Celestia realizes with shock that he can read her mind. She stares at him, her internal monologue racing with W's and excitement. She writes down the question, "Can you read minds?" The man, Duke Alan, admits it, stating he has been called creepy many times for this ability. However, he notes that Celestia is the first person to react with excitement rather than fear. Alan explains that he is also poor with social settings because the barrage of stray thoughts from others is exhausting. Celestia, rather than judging him, imagines the cacophony he must endure and feels a wave of empathy, thinking, what kind of world must that be? It must be quite painful. Alan hears this compassionate thought and is visibly moved, noting that sometimes silence comes from kindness. He comforts her, saying that words and hearts not matching isn't always a bad thing. He then references a specific line, "To the one under the moon," revealing he knows the literary reference she was thinking of. He admits his telepathy used to weigh on him, but now he takes advantage of it. Celestia reveals she spends her time immersed in hobbies in her room since she cannot speak. Alan laughs, noting she reads some niche material. They bond over the garden, which Alan reveals he modeled after the book, The One Who Inherits Time, the very same book Celestia loves. Celestia is overjoyed to meet someone who understands the character's emotions. She asks for his name, and he introduces himself properly as Guilford. Celestia marvels at how long it has been since she enjoyed a conversation like this. The moment is shattered when Celestia's father and stepfamily arrive. The father is stunned to see her with the Duke. Lilaru and the stepmother are aghast. The Duke apologizes for keeping her, stating they got caught up in chatting. The father, sweating nervously, apologizes for his daughter's inability to speak, hoping she didn't trouble the Duke. The Duke counters this, stating he had a very enjoyable time and that her presence made hosting the ball worth it. The stepmother and Lilaru are furious. They drag Celestia away, complaining that they are tired of waiting and that getting lost in such a big mansion is troublesome. The stepmother sneers that she figured they would never find her without a voice. As they leave, the Duke promises to write Celestia a letter. Back at the carriage, Lilaru is in shock, demanding to know why the Duke was with her sister. She screams that Celestia should have told her it was Lord Guilford sooner. Celestia remains silent but happy. Later, in her room, Celestia reflects on the encounter. Though she hasn't received his letter yet, she reads the book he recommended and finds it incredibly interesting. She longs to share this joy with Guilford. Her thoughts are interrupted by the stepmother, who enters with a sinister demeanor. She calls Celestia a meddler and threatens that next time, her arms and legs might stop moving. Suddenly, Celestia begins to cough violently. She collapses, realizing the sensation is familiar. She deduces that the reason she lost her voice years ago wasn't an illness, but poison. As she lies on the floor, the stepmother looms over her, complaining that marrying the old man, Celestia's father, would be for nothing if Celestia ruins her plans. The stepmother thanks Celestia for connecting them with the Duke but tells her to know her place. She declares she will write the Duke a letter herself, claiming Celestia collapsed from illness, effectively cutting her off. Darkness falls. The stepmother bids Celestia a mocking good night, as Celestia loses consciousness. Some time passes. The scene shifts to the front of the Reinhardt mansion. Duke Alan has arrived unexpectedly, much to the shock of the stepmother. She tries to maintain her composure, thanking him for coming but stating that Celestia hasn't woken up yet. She spins a lie that the doctor suspects it is the same illness that took Celestia's voice, implying she is unfit to be by the Duke's side. She audaciously suggests that Lilaru should keep him company instead. The Duke's expression is cold and calculating. He drops the bombshell. If the symptoms match the last time, then it was likely poison back then as well. The father is shocked, gasping, "No way." The Duke ignores the stepmother's protests and orders his personal doctor to examine Celestia immediately. He also orders the guards to inspect the mansion. The stepmother attempts to gaslight the Duke, claiming his actions are excessive and akin to accusing them of a crime without proof. She argues that poison has become a popular method in other countries because it is untraceable, trying to deflect suspicion. She feigns indignation, acting as if he is hunting for a culprit unjustly. The Duke raises a hand to silence her. He calmly states that he never said he was looking for a culprit, only for the source of the poison. He points out that her defensive reaction makes it seem like she knows exactly who did it. He watches her crumble under his logic, remarking that they will know the truth once the investigation is complete. Alan then delivers his final verdict to the schemers. He states clearly that the possibility of Lilaru taking Celestia's place is zero. He declares with absolute conviction that the only woman he wishes to love is Celestia, and her alone. The narrative jumps forward. Celestia and Alan are walking in the garden again. Alan asks if she wants to take a break, noting she has started walking pretty well again. Celestia reflects on the outcome. Her stepmother and stepsister, faced with the evidence gathered by the Duke's investigation, confessed to their crimes. They now await judgment in an underground prison in a remote region. Celestia admits she still struggles with the trauma, part of her believing her stepmother's words that she should step aside. She worries she is troubling the Duke. However, Alan reassures her, understanding her difficulty in trusting words. Celestia looks at him with love and determination. She vows that from now on, she will prove her feelings to him over and over, in many different ways, since she cannot speak. The story concludes with her internal promise to let her heart, which longs for him, be expressed through her actions. A bowl of soup crashes against the floorboards, sending liquid splattering across the room as a harsh, visceral reprimand shatters the silence. A young woman, Mila, recoils as her efforts are immediately deemed completely useless by the dark-haired aggressor standing over her. The antagonist, clutching a utensil, declares that her entire mood has been ruined by the incident, her voice dripping with disdain as she accuses Mila of poisoning the food. Mila, trembling on the floor, stammers a terrified apology, but her contrition falls on deaf ears. The scene shifts to reveal the oppressor, a woman of sharp features and elegant dress, wielding a riding crop with practiced menace. She looms over Mila, condemning her as totally undisciplined and deciding that a physical punishment is required to correct this behavior. The crop whistles through the air, signaling imminent violence as Mila flinches, her mind racing with the realization that she is about to be struck. The abuser spits verbal venom, labeling Mila a demon-possessed freak, and cruelly asserting that her very birth was a mistake. The sheer malice in her eyes paralyzes Mila, who can only brace herself against the onslaught of hatred. Later, Mila walks alone through the estate grounds under the pale light of a crescent moon, reflecting on the curse that has defined her existence. Since birth, she has possessed the ability to control shadows, a trait that alienated her from society and branded her with the derogatory title of demon-possessed. She recalls that her only true allies were her mother and father, but their lives were cut short in an unfortunate accident, leaving her destitute and unprotected. Following their deaths, she was taken in by a distant relative, Aunt Lisa, a woman who presents herself as a legitimate businesswoman but operates a sinister secret side business. The grim reality is that Aunt Lisa is a human trafficker, and Mila is trapped within this web of criminal exploitation. Mila approaches a secluded, dilapidated building, her hand hesitating on the door handle as she prepares to face the victims of her aunt's greed. Inside, a group of ragged children huddle together in the darkness, their eyes lighting up as they recognize Big Sister, Mila. Mila apologizes for her lateness and produces food for the starving captives, who eagerly gather around her. The children, innocent and confused, bombard her with heartbreaking questions about their location and when they might be allowed to return home. Mila falters, unable to provide the answers they seek, her heart aching with the knowledge that she lacks the power to liberate them. She understands that even if she attempted to escape with them, there is nowhere safe to run. Hope is a scarce commodity in their world. Despite this internal despair, she forces a smile and reassures the children that they will go home soon, offering a comforting lie to preserve their fragile spirits. Outside the confinement, Mila leans against a wall, overwhelmed by her powerlessness and the weight of her situation. She grapples with the moral conflict of her inaction, questioning what she should do and refusing to accept that things must remain this way. Suddenly, a voice cuts through her brooding. A man with an eye patch and a rough, working-class demeanor calls out to her. He beckons her, insisting she has arrived at the perfect time to assist him. Mila recognizes him as Mr. Avers, the estate's handyman. Mr. Avers is revealed to be a recent hire, having joined the estate's staff about a month prior to help with heavy labor that Aunt Lisa cannot manage. He describes himself as a jack of all trades, capable of doing anything, and expresses gratitude for the employment as he had been struggling to find work. In the garden, he thanks Mila for cleaning up a specific area, praising her work and apologizing for making her help him with his tasks. Mila, humble and shy, deflects the praise, insisting that she had been meaning to take care of it and that he is the one who saved her the trouble. As they interact, Avers suddenly grabs Mila's arm, causing her to let out a startled cry and pull back. He remarks on how shockingly thin she is, his single eye scanning her with concern. He then notices the fresh burns and injuries on her skin, demanding to know if she is eating properly and what happened to cause such wounds. Avers observes that the burns must have been incredibly painful and notes that leaving them untreated would only lead to infection or worsening conditions. He gently tends to her injuries, applying treatment with a dexterity that belies his rough appearance. Mila, unused to such kindness, stammers her thanks, her face flushing as he expresses that seeing her in such a state makes him worry. During this intimate moment of healing, Avers lowers his voice and broaches a dangerous subject regarding the estate. He admits to hearing some truly bad rumors about the house, probing Mila for information. Before she can respond, the dark-haired cousin from the earlier abuse scene interrupts, spotting them together. She addresses Avers as Lord Avers, a peculiar title for a handyman, and feigns concern, telling him to report any issues to her immediately. The cousin's demeanor shifts instantly when she looks at Mila. Her expression curdles into disgust. She warns Avers that being near someone like that will result in him being cursed, reinforcing the stigma surrounding Mila's powers. The cousin then snaps at Mila, ordering her to get back to work and accusing her of slacking off. Mila apologizes profusely and retreats, while the cousin takes Avers' arm, shamelessly flirting and leading him away. Avers plays along, agreeing to go with her, but casts a backward glance at the retreating Mila. Later, inside the mansion, the cousin complains to Aunt Lisa about Mila's behavior. She accuses Mila of slacking off and flirting with Lord Avers, labeling the interaction as unforgivable. Aunt Lisa listens thoughtfully, advising her daughter to keep her interactions with Avers to fun and games, acknowledging his charm but seemingly dismissing him as a serious prospect due to his station. However, Aunt Lisa's mind turns to a more sinister utilization of Mila's existence. Aunt Lisa confronts Mila with a shocking directive: she is to get married. Mila is stunned, but Aunt Lisa frames it as a non-negotiable expectation, assuming Mila will accept without resistance. The aunt reveals that they have finally found a use for Mila's demon-possessed power, stating that it is worth a fortune. The plan is gruesome and calculating. Mila is to marry a nouveau riche man, kill him using her shadow powers which leave no weapon or evidence, and then return to the estate as a wealthy widow with his inheritance. Mila recoils in horror, stuttering that she could not possibly kill someone. Aunt Lisa's expression darkens immediately. She grabs Mila, threatening her with the safety of the children in the annex. She guilt-trips Mila, reminding her that the family took her in when no one else wanted a freak like her. The threat is explicit. If Mila refuses to comply with the murder plot, she cannot guarantee what will happen to the captive children. Left alone in the dark, Mila collapses to the floor, surrounded by the oppressive weight of her fate. Visuals of spider lilies, flowers associated with death and separation, dominate the shadows around her, symbolizing her entrapment. She realizes that no matter how far she tries to run or hide, she is defined by her demon-possessed nature, not her humanity. She resigns herself to the role of a tool for Aunt Lisa, believing that becoming a monster is the only way to ensure the children's survival. The thought of killing terrifies her, but the alternative of abandoning the children is impossible for her to bear. The narrative jumps to the wedding ceremony. Mila stands at the altar, veiled and trembling, as the officiant begins the rites. She is told to look her groom in the eye, and when she lifts her head, she is shocked to see Mr. Evers standing there, dressed in formal attire. The officiant asks Viscount Ingolf if he takes Mila Engelhart to be his wife. Mila is confused, her internal monologue screaming that she cannot go through with this charade. Suddenly, the ceremony is interrupted. A voice booms that the charade ends here, and the commander of the royal police announces that all exits are sealed. Panic erupts among the guests and the conspirators. Evers sheds his disguise, and it is revealed that he is not merely a handyman or a viscount, but the second prince of the kingdom. He turns to Mila, reassuring her that everything is okay now. Evers, now speaking with the authority of the royal police, addresses Aunt Lisa directly. He reveals that they could not get a lead on her criminal activities for the longest time, which necessitated his undercover infiltration. He declares that she is under suspicion of human trafficking and conspiracy to commit murder, and that there is nowhere left for her to run. He confirms that they have secured all the evidence and, most importantly, that the children in the annex are safe. He adds a stinging detail: Aunt Lisa's own daughter spilled everything about their operation proudly, likely under interrogation or trickery. Realizing she has been backed into a corner, Aunt Lisa snaps. Her face contorts into a mask of rage as she refuses to accept defeat. She draws hidden blades and lunges at Evers, screaming for him to die. Mila screams a warning, "Mr. Evers, watch out." Chaos ensues as the police rush in to secure the room. However, Mila's emotional turmoil triggers her powers uncontrollably. Shadows erupt around her, creating a chaotic barrier or attack that stuns the onlookers. The cousin, now realizing the extent of the situation, screams that Mila is a monster who will be hated forever and die in misery. The police officers, wary of the dangerous magic, yell to take her away. Mila, overwhelmed by the manifestation of her curse and the vitriol directed at her, begs for them not to look at her. She feels her humanity slipping away, consumed by the demon identity she has fought against. Suddenly, Evers steps into the swirling shadows. He approaches the weeping Mila, undeterred by the dangerous magic. He speaks to her gently, acknowledging the truth she tried to hide, that when her emotions run wild, she loses control of her power. Mila confesses that her power never goes the way she wants, and she wishes she could just live a normal life. She sobs that she never wanted him to know about her power because she believes she is just a monster, unworthy to stand face to face with him. Evers rejects her self-loathing. He looks her in the eyes and thanks her. He reveals that it was her power that saved him when the ant attacked, protecting him from the blades. He validates her nature, telling her that he knows for sure she is a kind person because she used that power to protect the children. He extends his hand to her, offering a new path. He declares that from now on he will be by her side. He promises that together, they will find a way to manage her power and her life. Mila, touched by his acceptance and love, takes his hand. The story concludes with Mila resolving to face forward, ready to face Evers and her future with all her heart. A tense atmosphere pervades the Lucian household as the family recoils in shock at a sudden marriage proposal from a high-ranking noble. The suitor is none other than Lord Luke, a man infamous as a terrifying knight and dubbed the demon god of the battlefield. Marina Lucian, who has never even met the man, stands quietly while her stepmother and stepsister process the news. The Lucian family, merely viscounts, feels they cannot possibly refuse an offer from the Marquis Bright, despite the terrifying reputation of the groom and the remote location of his estate. The stepmother sneers at the idea of marrying her own daughter into such a backwater, scoffing at the ridiculousness of the notion. The matriarch devises a cruel solution to their dilemma, deciding to send Marina in her own daughter's place. She dismisses the potential consequences, rationalizing that Marina is technically a daughter of the house, even if the substitution might anger the Marquis. The stepmother callously notes that sending the pathetic girl is a good idea, as no one would be happy about the marriage regardless. The family justifies their acceptance of the proposal by citing their declining land management. They had no choice but to agree to secure their future. The Lucian family, once royal apothecaries who earned their title during the kingdom's founding, has fallen far from grace. The stepmother coerces Marina into compliance, framing her as a good girl who always listens, effectively forcing her silence. Marina reflects on her tormented past, recalling how her stepmother squandered the family's wealth and her stepsister mocked her daily. She lost her mother at a young age, but her grandparents bequeathed to her the ancestral knowledge of apothecary skills. Her stepfamily belittled these skills, claiming that being an apothecary was not something nobles did and urging her to work harder for the family instead. Everything shifted for the worse when her father remarried and subsequently died in a sudden accident, leaving Marina defenseless. Now, sitting in a carriage bound for the frontier, Marina finds a silver lining. Her happiness stems solely from escaping her abusive family. However, anxiety lingers as she wonders what kind of life awaits a bride with no dowry at her destination. The journey takes a dangerous turn when a masked figure intercepts the carriage, demanding it stop. The stranger, wielding a blade, questions where a woman would be going all alone in such a place. He identifies himself as Bright, the Marquis of the Borderlands and Guardian of the Frontier, demanding the occupants state their name. Mina, flustered and blushing, stammers that she has come to the Bright estate to be married that very day. The Marquis, Lord Luke, stares at her intensely before realization dawns on him. He admits he completely forgot about the arrangement, though he acknowledges receiving a letter. He dismissively instructs her to proceed to the castle and make herself at home, claiming he is too busy to attend to her. As he turns away, he remarks with a hint of resignation that she is his bride. Marina watches him go, trembling with fear, questioning if she can truly survive in this place with a man she perceives as terrifying. Marina arrives at the imposing stone castle, where the staff greets her with unexpected warmth. Servants urge her to rest, acknowledging her fatigue from the journey. Marina's newlywed life begins without a wedding ceremony, and she formally greets the household staff, looking forward to their care. However, a week passes without her having a proper conversation with Lord Luke, her supposed husband. They cross paths briefly, exchanging only curt greetings or silence. Feeling the strain of neglect, Marina sits for tea with a maid, Marquis, who apologizes deeply for Lord Luke's distant behavior. Marina tries to be gracious, noting that at least she managed to greet him that day. Marquis, who has known Luke since his youth, insists that he is actually a very kind man and does not dislike Marina. She explains that after losing his parents young and suffering constant meddling from relatives, Luke began keeping people at a distance as a defense mechanism. Seeking a change of pace, Marina invites the maid to visit the town market with her. Internally, Marina battles her insecurities, believing Luke is disappointed in her because she arrived with no dowry and isn't even dressed like a proper bride. She blames herself for the distance between them. The maid encourages the trip, suggesting it will lift Marina's spirits, noting that despite the distance from the capital, the market is lively and full of foreign goods. The market is indeed thriving, filled with fruits and vegetables Marina has never seen before. Her apothecary instincts flare when she spots a stall selling dried herbs. The merchant claims the herbs work wonders for the throat when brewed into tea, but admits they don't sell well because they are too bitter. He offers them cheaply, noting they have been sitting there so long they are drying out. Marina, realizing she can make effective medicine with them, eagerly agrees to buy them. The merchant, pleased to clear his stock, offers an even lower price. The townspeople express immense gratitude toward the current lord, noting that since he took over, trade routes are safe and stock has improved. Marina observes that Lord Luke is genuinely loved by his people, who see him working hard for their sake. Marina explains to her maid, Martha, that there are ways to use herbs other than tea to mitigate the bitterness, revealing her expertise. Back at the castle, Marina prepares the medicine, the smell triggering a painful memory of her stepsister screeching about the herb's smell and insulting her as a country bumpkin who should reek like that forever. Marina shakes off the memory, taking pride in the precious apothecary knowledge passed down from her grandparents. She acknowledges that this skill is the only thing she truly knows and is glad she brought her medicine-making tools, hoping they will be useful to someone. She successfully creates small pills for coughing, adjusted so even children can swallow them easily. Marina wonders if anyone will buy them, but the maid is astonished that she turned the herbs into medicine. The maid urges Marina to tell her husband, explaining that doctors are few and medicine is incredibly scarce in the region. A few days later, Marina attempts to approach Lord Luke. Before she can speak, he dismisses her, stating he cannot talk right now. Dejected, Marina retreats. Shortly after, a crisis strikes the household. Martha, the maid, has been resting since morning due to severe dizziness. Marina decides to go to the market alone since Martha is incapacitated. Upon arriving in town, Marina finds the streets ominously empty. The merchant from before spots her and warns her that it is dangerous and she should head home. He explains a local epidemic is spreading fast, starting with dizziness and progressing until the victim cannot even get up or drink water. Marina connects the symptoms immediately, dizziness and a weakened body, realizing this is what afflicts Martha. She purchases more herbs from the merchant to create a remedy. Racing back to the castle, Marina brews a treatment using the herbs she bought. She administers it to the bedridden Martha, urging her to drink it. The effect is miraculous. Martha recovers swiftly, stating her head is clear and she feels as if she was never sick. Emboldened by this success, Marina declares she must go into town to help more people. However, guards block her path at the door, informing her that Lord Luke has issued a strict no-outing order. Marina refuses to accept this and confronts Luke directly, demanding to know why he won't let her go to the town. Luke, looking stern, insists it is dangerous outside due to the epidemic and orders everyone, including her, to remain inside. Marina argues passionately, gripping his arm, stating that if they wait until everyone is weakened, it will be too late. She reveals that she wants to use her family's medicine to protect the people, citing Martha's recovery as proof of its efficacy. She appeals to his sense of duty, noting that just as he fought off bandits to protect his people, she wants to do what she can for them too. She acknowledges how much he cares for his subjects. Softening her tone, she apologizes for her outburst but asserts her desire to be a wife worthy of him. Luke is visibly moved, admitting he never imagined she possessed such strong conviction. He thanks her for saving Martha. Luke opens up, explaining that the land was granted to his ancestors but had been plagued by bandits and rogues in recent years. He points out the proximity to the national border just beyond the forest. He reveals the struggle he faced taking over the territory from relatives who forced it upon him, and how he spent years fighting to clear them out, earning his reputation as a bloodthirsty demon. Mina admits she misunderstood him, just as he misunderstood her. Luke confesses he thought they were both trapped in an unwanted political marriage and apologizes for neglecting her. With the air cleared, they resolve to go to the town together to distribute the medicine. The result is swift, the epidemic is contained, and the town regains its energy. News of their efforts spreads across the country via merchants, and Luke's achievements in guarding the border are formally recognized. Consequently, the couple is summoned to the royal palace by the king. As they prepare to enter the grand hall, Luke notices Marina's nervousness about the fancy formal wear. They enter the ballroom, creating a stir among the guests who marvel at Luke's dashing appearance. Suddenly, familiar voices cut through the murmurs. Marina's stepmother and stepsister stare in disbelief, shocked to see Marina standing beside the marquis. They had not realized the Marina married was the handsome man before them. The stepsister, delusional and jealous, approaches them, sneering that Marina is high and mighty now. She audaciously claims that she was the one truly suited to be Lord Luke's wife and that there was simply a misunderstanding. The stepsister mocks Marina, telling her to go home and brew weeds, claiming she still reeks of herbs. The stepmother joins in, feigning pity for Luke having to deal with such a burden. Luke interrupts their verbal assault with a cold glare, asking if there is a problem with his wife. The stepfamily is incredulous that he would talk back to them, but Marina steps forward, refusing to let them steal Luke from her. The stepsister tries to seduce Luke right there, batting her eyelashes and claiming she has the beauty and grace befitting his side. She lies, asserting that Marina ran off and imposed herself on him, and that the original proposal was meant for her, the true eldest daughter. She suggests that since the wedding ceremony hasn't happened yet, he can simply switch brides and send Marina back. Luke listens calmly, then drops a bombshell. He reveals he found it odd that Marina arrived with nothing but the clothes on her back and never spoke of her family, so he had someone investigate. He exposes the stepmother's crimes. She extorted heavy taxes from the people and stole the inheritance left to Marina right after her father died. Luke declares firmly that Marina is the true heir to House Lucian and that the stepfamily has no right to bear the name. The stepmother turns pale as royal guards surround them. Luke announces that the king has ordered an official investigation. The stepmother tries to flee, shouting that she is a noblewoman, but she is silenced and dragged away, vowing Marina will regret this. With the antagonists removed, Luke comforts a shaken Marina, asking if she is all right. He leads her to see His Majesty. In a quiet moment, Luke vows never to let her go, admitting he was afraid he wouldn't be able to stay by her side. They stand before the king and queen. The king praises Luke for his brave deeds defending the borders, comparing him to his ancestor, the Holy Knight. The king then turns his attention to Marina, acknowledging her as the famous apothecary who created the medicine for the common people. He praises her as expected of a descendant of the legendary Lucian apothecary. Marina presents a gift to the royals, the Lucian family's secret perfume. The queen is delighted by the scent, noting it soothes the heart and relieves fatigue. The king agrees, finding it incredibly calming. Marina is overwhelmed with happiness to have her family's legacy praised by the monarchs, feeling that her father and grandfather would be proud. Luke embraces her, whispering that she smells wonderful. As the story concludes, Luke suggests they hold their wedding properly when they return to the castle, to which Marina joyfully agrees. Sharp fangs glinted in the darkness of Fiona's memory, accompanied by glowing red eyes that pierced through the veil of her past. A voice echoed in her mind, declaring a lack of care for the consequences because there was no place left to return to, provided she was sucked dry in that very moment. This haunting reminiscence faded as the reality of the Sanchez estate materialized, where Fiona Sanchez lay prone on the floor, having been shoved down by her sister. Lily Sanchez, dressed in finery that contrasted sharply with Fiona's plain attire, stood over her with a mocking expression, questioning how a plain and clumsy woman could ever be a perfect match for anyone. Lily feigned sympathy, calling out, "Poor Sister Fiona," while inwardly reveling in the cruelty of the situation. The destiny awaiting Fiona was to be married off to the infamous, cruel and merciless vampire Duke, a fate the family viewed as a disposal rather than a union. Rumors swirled around the figure of Duke Kane Arnold, a vampire known for loathing humans. Tales whispered in the town suggested that whenever people went missing, they ended up on his dinner table. Fiona, resigned to her fate, understood that she had been chosen as his bride essentially to act as a regular blood supply, a proposition the Duke himself had allegedly made. The decline of the Sanchez family business following her father's remarriage to her stepmother had necessitated this sacrifice. In exchange for Fiona, the Duke had promised to provide wealth, jewels, food, and anything the family needed to reverse their failing fortunes. Lily, continuing her physical and emotional assault, grabbed Fiona by the collar, pulling her close to inspect the nape of her neck. She noted with disdain that even with the hideous scar marring Fiona's skin, it would not affect the taste of her blood. Lily rationalized that at least Fiona had been chosen for something, implying that her only value lay in being a vessel for consumption. Fiona remained silent under this barrage, her eyes cast downward, prompting Lily to sneer at her lack of response. Internally, Fiona reflected on her worthlessness, an existence deemed shameful by her own family. Her father and stepmother had branded her as tainted ever since an incident when she was 10 years old, where she was bitten by an unknown vampire. Yet, as she prepared to leave, a melancholic realization settled within her. Even if her purpose was merely to serve as food or a sacrifice, being needed for the first time in her life felt like a blessing. That moment in her childhood, despite the trauma, had been the only other time she felt necessary to someone. The carriage arrived to transport her to her doom, the wheels rattling as it departed the Sanchez estate. Fiona sat inside, her resolve hardening. If she could be of use to someone, she cared little for what happened to her own well-being. Upon arrival at the imposing mansion, the door creaked open, and a voice inquired if she was Fiona. The carriage drivers, eager to flee the eerie location, announced their departure immediately. Standing before the entrance, Fiona exhaled a nervous breath and addressed Lord Kane. The vampire stood in the doorway, his appearance striking and composed, far removed from the monstrous rumors. He acknowledged her presence with a simple, "I see." Fiona, trembling but determined, introduced herself as Fiona of the Sanchez family and bowed, declaring it an honor to meet him. She mentally prepared herself to offer him her blood, her life, and everything she possessed, expecting the worst. Kane, observing her stoicism, gestured for her to enter the mansion. The heavy doors closed behind them, and the atmosphere inside the mansion felt suffocating to Fiona. Walking through the grand hallway, she admitted to herself that the prospect of actually dying was frightening, despite her earlier resolve. They arrived in a bedroom, where Kane turned to face her. He declared that from that day forward, they were husband and wife, and he would not hold back. Fiona, bracing for violence, made a single request of Lord Kane. She asked him about the logistics of feeding, telling him she did not mind the act itself. However, she implored him not to look at her left shoulder, ashamed of the scar that Lily had mocked. Kane looked puzzled by her plea. He clarified that the deal was merely for him to take a small amount of blood, seemingly confused by her intense reaction. The misunderstanding hung in the air as he moved closer, and Fiona questioned if that was truly the extent of the arrangement. Kane approached her, his hand gently moving her hair aside to bare her neck. Fiona blushed, her heart racing as he leaned in. He bit her, but the sensation was not the tearing pain she expected. Instead, he drank tenderly. Fiona let out a soft sound, surprised by the gentleness of the act, which was far removed from the brutality she had envisioned. Suddenly, a sharp sensation registered, and Fiona winced, crying out, "Ow!" Kane immediately pulled back, apologizing profusely. He worried that he had bitten too hard or sunk his fangs in too deep, his expression one of genuine concern. Fiona, flustered, tried to regain her composure. Kane, attempting to rectify the situation for future feedings or perhaps to treat the current wound, produced a small blade from a drawer, assuring her that the cut would not be rough. Fiona stared at the blade in shock. Kane reassured her that the wound was fine and would heal quickly, explaining that vampires possessed healing magic. He pressed his hand against her neck, the magic sealing the puncture marks. Fiona, however, was not concerned for herself. She panicked, asking how careless he could be. Kane, confused, insisted the wound was not the issue. Fiona clarified her fear. She was terrified that he might accidentally cut his own finger while handling the blade or his fangs. Kane stared at her, stunned by her logic. Even if he was a vampire, Fiona argued, he still felt pain, did he not? She humbly requested that she do the cutting herself in the future to ensure his safety. She insisted it would be terrible if he got hurt and implored him to take care of his precious body. The narrative shifted to a later time, with Kane observing Fiona. He noted that while her concern was touching, this level of self-neglect was not normal. He realized there were people in the world who couldn't even manage the baseline of normal happiness because of their trauma. He remarked that it must hurt more for her than for him. Fiona, smiling softly, dismissed the pain, stating it wasn't scary at all. She found him easy to talk to, and his presence made her feel safe, a sentiment she hadn't experienced in a long time. She told him he wasn't scary, noting his constant kindness. Kane decided to change her world further. He presented her with beautiful, bright clothing, stating that Fiona looked best in such attire. He offered to gift them all to her. Fiona, overwhelmed, asked if it was truly okay, and upon his confirmation, beamed with happiness, promising to wear them with great care. Kane then proposed that they go out to town the following day so she could wear the new dresses in public. The next day, they walked through the town streets. Fiona, dressed in a stunning gown, nervously held onto Kane's arm as he instructed her to do so to prevent getting lost. She hesitated, asking if it was really okay for them to be outside, fearing the sunlight or the stares of the people. Kane reassured her that neither sunlight nor the gaze of others posed any danger to him. As they navigated the crowd, a young boy ran into them, colliding with Fiona. The boy fell back, and a bystander screamed, realizing the man was the vampire Duke. The crowd recoiled, whispering fearfully about the creepy mansion and accusing Kane of looking for another sacrifice. The boy, terrified, warned Kane not to touch Fiona, assuming the vampire was hurting her. Kane ignored the crowd's hostility and focused on the boy, asking if he was hurt. The boy, confused by the lack of aggression, stammered. Fiona stepped forward, defending Kane, declaring that Lord Kane would never do anything cruel. Kane silenced the crowd's murmurs by stating he could not ignore their rudeness toward Fiona. He knelt before the boy, stating that tending to the injury came first. He placed his hand on the boy's scraped knee, and with a glow of magic, healed the wound instantly. The crowd gasped. The boy, amazed, stammered a thank you. Kane smiled gently and told him not to worry about it. From the shadows of the alleyway, Lily watched the scene unfold, seething. She saw the handsome man and realized it was Duke Arnold. However, she failed to recognize the beautiful woman beside him as her sister, Fiona, dismissing her as dull compared to herself. Lily convinced herself that she was the one more suitable to be his wife, blinded by jealousy and the Duke's stunning appearance. Fiona and Kane walked away from the crowd, Fiona expressing her relief that the boy wasn't badly hurt. She smiled, noting how kind Lord Kane was. Kane gazed at her, acknowledging her kindness as well. Suddenly, Lily intercepted them, feigning surprise and calling out, "Lord Kane." She then noticed Fiona, shouting her name in exaggerated shock. Lily claimed she saw them in town and followed, introducing herself as Fiona's younger sister. She gushed over Kane's healing magic, calling it amazing. Lily then pivoted to her true objective, sabotaging Fiona. She asked Kane if he had seen her sister's ugly scar, intentionally drawing attention to Fiona's deepest insecurity. Fiona froze, terrified. Lily speculated maliciously about whose hands Fiona had shown her body to, implying the scar was a result of promiscuity or shameful acts, insisting that scars like that didn't just appear. She boldly declared that she was more suitable for a kind, gentlemanly man like Cain than her scarred sister. Lily called Fiona a hideous bride and a worthless existence. Cain's expression darkened instantly. He addressed Lily with cold fury, asking her who was truly hideous. He pulled Fiona close, embracing her protectively. Cain declared that Fiona's scar was a mark of her kindness and strength, and a foolish person like Lily had no right to mock it. He asked Lily how she ever thought she would be chosen with such a wretched attitude. He stated plainly that Lily could never be Fiona and that no one else could ever replace her. Cain looked into Fiona's eyes and declared, "I love Fiona." He then turned to Lily and ordered the outsider to leave. Lily, humiliated and enraged, screamed that he was a blind fool to choose her sister. She yelled that he was the worst and told them to go live their lives as despised misfits together before storming off. Fiona, still reeling from the confrontation in Cain's defense, looked at him with tears in her eyes. Cain finally revealed the truth about the scar. He asked if she remembered getting it when a vampire attacked her long ago. He confessed, "The vampire was me." Flashbacks revealed a younger Cain biting the child Fiona. In the present, Cain looked distraught, apologizing for the pain he caused. Fiona, processing this, simply noted, "You're a vampire. Craving blood is natural." Cain asked if she really felt that way. Fiona smiled through her tears, stating that wounds heal if she is alive, and it only hurts a little. She told him that bearing the scar was much better than losing him. Cain confessed that not a single day had gone by since that incident that he didn't think of her. He had vowed not to confess his feelings until he learned to control his power because he had hurt her when he was immature. But now, things were different. He vowed that from now on and forever, her home was right there beside him. He held her face gently and told her again, "I love you." Fiona, weeping with joy, responded, "Of course. I love you too." They kissed, sealing their bond amidst the falling flower petals. The narrative concluded with the aftermath. Lily and the Sanchez family, having been cut off from all support by Lord Cain due to their rudeness, were now struggling to make ends meet. Lily was left lamenting her fate. Meanwhile, Fiona and Cain remained together. Lord Cain had once asked if Fiona wanted to remove the scar, but she had refused, saying, "Please leave it as it is." To Fiona, the scar was a precious memory for the two of them, a mark that remained with her even now as a symbol of their enduring love. In a grand, opulent dining hall illuminated by large windows, a young woman named Lily stands nervously before a table laden with fine china, her hands trembling as she presents a steaming tureen of stew to her seated relatives. Her Aunt Jessica and cousin Loretta, dressed in lavish, frilly gowns that contrast sharply with Lily's tattered and stained work clothes, recoil in exaggerated disgust at the sight of the meal. The aunt sneers, her face twisting into a mask of disdain as she questions who would possibly consume such unappealing slop, likening the humble stew to feed suitable only for animals rather than nobility. Lily attempts to salvage the situation, offering a strained, apologetic smile as she stammers that despite its appearance, the meal is very nutritious, though she apologizes for its lack of aesthetic fanciness. Her attempt at appeasement only fuels their ire. The aunt violently strikes the table, causing the dishes to rattle, and screams at Lily not to make excuses. The older woman leans forward, her eyes narrowing with malice, and demands to know if Lily understands exactly whose fault it is that their once proud family has been reduced to living in such a state. Before Lily can answer, her cousin Loretta chimes in, complaining that Lily's mere existence makes their lives miserable and recounting the humiliation she faced because the family finances were too tight to afford the season's new dresses. Lily collapses to the floor, terrified, letting out a small, pained gasp as the verbal barrage continues. The two women rise from the table, preparing to leave for a social engagement, and the aunt imperiously commands Lily to clean up the mess before they return. Loretta adds a final insult, remarking that she will simply eat something better at the party tonight, dismissing the food Lily worked to prepare. As the heavy doors close behind them, Lily remains on the floor, whispering a broken apology to her aunt and sister. The cruel laughter of her relatives echoes down the hallway, accompanied by cutting remarks about how useless she is and how they wish she would just drop dead already. Left alone in the silence of the mansion, Lily wipes at the floor with a rag, her internal monologue revealing the depth of her despair. She blames her weak body for causing trouble again. Tears drip from her eyes onto the wooden floorboards as she reflects on the financial burden she places on the household. She thinks of the medicine that keeps her alive, noting its exorbitant cost which has left their finances in a mess. Lily scrubs harder, her mind drifting to the unknown illness that has plagued her, a condition so severe that even doctors gave up on her, leaving her survival dependent on magic medicine. She recalls her tragic past, remembering how her parents, who were minor nobles, died shortly after she was born, forcing her aunt to take over the management of the household. The financial strain is so great that they cannot even afford servants, leaving Lily to perform all the manual labor despite her frailty. A heavy shadow falls over her thoughts as she remembers the doctor's prognosis. She has been told she has only 1 year left to live. She attempts to stifle her tears, telling herself she cannot cry, but the weight of her guilt crushes her, convincing her that everything is her fault. Standing near a precipice overlooking the estate's lake, she chastises herself for making life harder for everyone and spirals into a dark thought that someone like her has no reason to go on living. Suddenly, Lily loses her footing, slipping on the edge with a startled cry. She braces for the impact of the fall, squeezing her eyes shut. However, the impact never comes. Instead, she feels a sensation of weightlessness. Opening her eyes, she realizes with shock that she is floating in midair, suspended by a shimmering magical energy. A man with dark, windswept hair and piercing eyes holds her securely in his arms, his attire distinct and elegant, featuring a high collar and a flowing cape. Lily stares at him, bewildered, and deduces that he must be a magician. The stranger gently lowers her to the safety of the grassy bank, his gaze lingering on her battered appearance. He asks her directly if she was trying to die, noting that she looked utterly forsaken standing there in her ragged outfit. Lily vehemently denies this, stammering that she only came to the lake to rest. She becomes acutely aware of her shabby clothes and tries to shrink away, asking if she really looks that pathetic. The man apologizes for his assumption, acknowledging his mistake, but then gently takes her hand to inspect her arm. He points out that she is covered in bruises, his expression softening with concern. Lily flushes, trying to downplay her injuries, but then her attention shifts to her clothes. With a wave of his hand, the magician repairs the tears and cleans the dirt from her dress, leaving it looking pristine. Lily gasps in amazement, exclaiming that she has always used medicine but this is the first time she has met a real magician. She thanks him profusely, feeling a strange warmth emanating from his hand. She beams at him, telling him that being cheerful is the only thing she has to offer. The man observes her smile, remarking that she is surprisingly cheerful considering her situation. He then sniffs the air slightly and identifies the scent of medicine clinging to her, realizing she is sick. Lily admits she relies on medicine but insists she usually feels fine thanks to it. Curious about this mysterious savior, Lily asks what brings a magician like him to this place. The man, looking slightly flustered, claims he snuck out for a break and is just traveling for now. Lily sighs wistfully, saying that a trip sounds nice and she wishes she could go on one, then asks if he will be around for a while. When he affirms he will be, she excitedly asks him to tell her stories about his journey next time. From that day on, a secret routine develops between them. They meet once a week by the lake to talk, an escape that becomes the center of Lily's world. The man, whose name is Lloyd, shares refreshing stories from his travels that captivate Lily's imagination. He demonstrates various feats of magic for her and even allows her to ride behind him on his broom, soaring through the sky with the wind in her hair. For Lily, being with Lloyd is always fun, and meeting him becomes the one thing she looks forward to in her bleak existence. On one sunny afternoon, Lloyd arrives carrying a large woven basket, calling out Lily's name. He announces that he has brought her something today. They sit together on the grass, and Lloyd reveals sandwiches, explaining that they are very popular in town and filled with delicious roast beef and sauce. Lily's eyes widen at the treat, and she exclaims her happiness, thanking him repeatedly. As she takes a bite and savors the flavor, Lloyd watches her affectionately but with a hint of worry, noting that she seems skinnier lately and urging her to eat as much as she likes. Lily denies the concern, simply happy that he cares enough to notice. During their meal, Lloyd hesitates before bringing up a serious topic, apologizing for raising it. He tells her that he might know someone who can help with her medical condition and promises to contact them, expressing regret that his own healing magic isn't strong enough. Lily smiles reassuringly, telling him that although she still gets coughs and fevers, she is otherwise fine, and asks about his health in return. Lloyd looks away, visibly nervous, and gulps before reaching into his pocket. He produces a small, glittering object and hands it to her, saying it is for her. Lily accepts the gift, her eyes widening as she beholds a beautiful, jeweled hair accessory adorned with pearls and gems. Her heart skips a beat at the gesture. She thanks him, overwhelmed, but then her expression falls as she questions whether it is really okay for someone like her to have something so lovely. Lloyd dismisses her insecurity immediately, telling her not to worry about it and asking her to wear it next time. He blushes, looking aside as he murmurs that she really should dress up more because, as he thought, the accessory suits her perfectly. Lily blushes furiously at the compliment. Later that day, Lily returns to the mansion, her hand lingering on the new accessory in her hair. She hums happily, thinking that today was fun too, and hurries to start her chores and prepare dinner. She announces her return cheerfully, but as she enters the room, the atmosphere instantly chills. Her aunt and cousins are waiting for her, their expressions dark and accusatory. They immediately demand to know what she has been up to, accusing her of slacking off and sneaking out frequently. The aunt's sharp eyes zero in on the glittering accessory in Lily's hair. She demands to know what it is, and before Lily can explain, the accusations fly. The aunt scoffs that there is no way Lily could afford such an item and accuses her of seducing someone to get it. Lily tries to defend herself, stammering that it was a gift, but the aunt advances on her. She snatches the accessory from Lily's head, ignoring the girl's pleas to stop. With a cruel motion, the aunt throws the delicate jewelry onto the stone floor, where it shatters into pieces with a loud crack. The women stand over Lily, sneering that she was wearing something far above her station and that she deserved this punishment. Broken-hearted, Lily retreats to the lake, clutching the shattered fragments of Lloyd's gift in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Lloyd finds her there and rushes to her side, shocked by her distraught appearance. Lily sobs that it is all her fault, repeating the cruel words of her family that the gift didn't suit her status even though it was so beautiful. She looks up at him with pleading, tear-filled eyes, asking if he can fix it. Lloyd clenches his fist, trembling with suppressed rage at the injustice, but he quickly composes himself for her sake. He tells her firmly that she hasn't done a single thing wrong and asks why she is the one apologizing. Lloyd apologizes to her instead, saying he is sorry he couldn't take better care of the gift, and promises to fix it right now. He cups the broken pieces in his hands, and with a glow of magic, the accessory reforms perfectly, as if it had never been broken. Lily watches the restoration through her tears and whispers that she is glad. Lloyd holds her close, his expression serious and determined. He tells her that she shouldn't have to suffer like this and promises that if she waits just a little longer, he will come for her and take her away from that place. However, a month passes, and Lloyd does not return. Lily waits, but doubt begins to creep in as she wonders how he is doing. The routine of the household is disrupted one morning by a loud commotion outside. Lily's cousin Loretta screams for her mother, and the aunt bursts into the room. She turns to Lily and sharply orders her to stay home and behave, effectively barring her from leaving. The aunt then excitedly informs Loretta and Jessica that a prince has come to town specifically looking for a fiancé. She declares this to be their big chance and orders them to put on their best dresses immediately. While her relatives scramble to make themselves presentable, Lily hears the sound of hooves outside. A voice rings out, asking if a woman named Lily lives in this house. Hearing her name, Lily rushes to the entrance, thinking only of seeing Lloyd one last time. She bursts out the door and stops dead in her tracks. There, mounted on a magnificent white horse and dressed in an elaborate military-style uniform with epaulettes and a cape, is Lloyd. He spots her and calls her name warmly. Lily stares up at him, stunned by his appearance, stammering that she is indeed Lily. Lloyd looks down at her with a gentle smile, apologizing for keeping her waiting. He confesses that he is so happy because he has wanted to see her so badly. He reaches a hand down to her, declaring that today he has come to take her with him. He then formally introduces himself, revealing that he is the second prince of the kingdom of Voltania. The crowd of onlookers and neighbors gasps as the revelation sinks in. Lloyd dismounts and stands before Lily, taking her hand. In front of the stunned townspeople and Lily's horrified relatives, he asks her to marry him. The crowd erupts into whispers, questioning who the girl is and expressing shock that the prince just proposed to her. Lily is overwhelmed, her face flushing red as she tries to process that Lloyd is a prince and that he wants to marry her. She stammers, asking what is happening, but Lloyd simply holds her gaze, telling her that while it might be sudden, he wants to protect her. He states firmly that he doesn't want her spending even one more second in that house. The touching moment is shattered by the shrill voices of Lily's aunt and cousins, who rush forward, struggling against the royal guards holding them back. They scream for the prince's attention, desperate to sabotage Lily. They shout that Lily is a failure and point to Loretta, claiming she is the better option. They viciously announce to the crowd that Lily is going to die in a year and describe her as nothing but a financial burden. They belittle her further, claiming she only plays pretend as a servant and doesn't even know proper social etiquette. Lloyd turns to face the screeching women, his expression hardening into icy authority. He commands silence, and the women flinch. He addresses their claims directly, stating that, most importantly, Lily will not die in a year. He glances back at Lily, who realizes with a jolt that he has investigated her condition thoroughly. Lloyd continues, mocking the relatives' claim of refinement by comparing them unfavorably to Lily, asserting that she would make the perfect princess while they are ugly inside and out. Lloyd's voice rises in anger as he accuses the aunt and cousins of being the ones who pushed Lily to this breaking point. The women stammer, trying to deny their involvement, but Lloyd cuts them off. He reveals that he has already investigated their family business and uncovered that their trading company exploits workers with terrible wages and is involved in shady deals. The women turn pale as their secrets are laid bare. Lloyd declares that he didn't just come to take Lily away, he came to exile all of them for their crimes. The guards seize the aunt and cousins, who scream in terror about their reputation as they are dragged away from the mansion. With the toxicity removed from her life, Lloyd leads Lily away, walking closely beside her. He explains everything to her in a soft voice. He reveals that her illness was a fabrication maintained by her aunt. She was being kept sedated with cheap medicine to make her feel weak and dependent, which is why she never got better. He tells her that he spent the last month arranging for a skilled medical mage to examine her case and finding the truth. He reassures her that while her condition, likely caused by the long-term sedation, is rare, it is fully curable with the right treatment. He explains that securing this cure and building the case against her family was why he had to keep her waiting for so long. Lloyd stops and looks into her eyes, smiling broadly. He tells her that now, she is finally free. He takes her hands in his and asks her one final question. From now on, will she stay with him? Tears of happiness well up in Lily's eyes as she beams at him, shouting yes. She throws her arms around him, telling him that she wants to stay with him forever too. They embrace and share a kiss under the bright sky, surrounded by the promise of a new future. The story concludes with the narration that they were married with the blessing of the entire kingdom, and the girl who once knew only sadness found her smile again, living happily ever after with her prince. Deep within the shadows of the imperial past, a malevolent scheme reaches its fruition 10 years prior to the present day. The Empress, her face obscured but her intentions clear, receives confirmation that a vile curse has successfully taken hold. Driven by a ruthless ambition to ensure her own bloodline ascends to power, she orchestrates this dark magic to pave the way for her precious son, Sieg, to become the crown prince. Her laughter echoes in the darkness, a chilling sound of triumph born from the suffering of another, as she revels in the knowledge that the curse has removed the obstacle to her son's succession. The scene shifts abruptly to the present, inside a grand hall where a public humiliation unfolds. Sieg, now an adult man, stands before a gathering of armored guards and nobility, his face twisted in performative outrage. With a dramatic gesture, he loudly declares the annulment of his engagement to Milia Guilfort, the daughter of the Duke. Milia, standing opposite him in a fine dress, looks on with wide, shocked eyes as Sieg feigns deep disappointment in her character. He accuses her of bullying her stepsister, Marietta, projecting an image of moral superiority while casting Milia as a villainess. Milia attempts to voice a denial, her expression one of confusion and distress, but her words are cut short. Sieg recounts a litany of fabricated grievances, claiming Milia physically struck Marietta whenever the stepsister tried to meet him and even stole a precious necklace. Milia desperately tries to explain that it is a misunderstanding, but the narrative has already been spun against her. Flashbacks reveal the twisted reality of Milia's home life. In these memories, Marietta, wearing a facade of innocence that barely conceals her malice, smirks while holding a broken necklace. Milia, tears in her eyes, pleads for the return of the item, explaining that it is a keepsake from her late mother. Marietta, indifferent to the sentimental value, dismisses Milia's pain, having taken it simply to provoke her. In another instance of the past, Marietta feigns injury, crying out that she has been hit, while Milia, trembling, insists she has never struck anyone in her life. Yet, in the present, Marietta clings to Sieg, burying her face in his chest to hide her triumphant smirk as she wails about being mocked for her status as a stepchild. The emperor, seated upon his throne with a stern expression, delivers the final judgment. He declares Milia unfit to hold the title of crown princess. He reveals that her own father, Duke Guilfort, has already consented to this dismissal, stripping Milia of her familial support. Marietta continues her theatrical sobbing in the background, ensuring the emperor's sympathy remains with her. The judgment is severe. As punishment for her alleged crimes, Milia is sentenced to serve the remainder of her life confined within the Maria monastery. However, as Milia sits in the carriage taking her away from the capital, her reaction is not one of despair, but of immense relief. She realizes she is finally free from the torment of her family and the false accusations that plagued her existence. As the carriage rumbles onward, her thoughts drift to a bittersweet memory of the past. Before she departs forever, she harbors a quiet wish to see one specific person one last time. Her mind wanders to 10 years ago, recalling Prince Alistair, the first prince of the empire and her former fiancé. She remembers him smiling warmly, holding a flower crown made of pink margarettes. He had placed it on her head, explaining that the flower's meaning was kindness, a trait he associated with her. Alistair had been a gentle soul, always watching over her with affection. However, tragedy struck a decade ago when Alistair stepped down from the line of succession due to a mysterious, unknown illness. Following his departure, his half-brother Sieg replaced him as crown prince, and Milia's engagement was transferred to Sieg. Milia recalls hearing rumors that Alistair was recovering in a faraway land, but she knows that once she enters the monastery, she will never have the chance to see him again. She laments that she never even got the chance to say goodbye to the boy who showed her such kindness. Suddenly, the carriage comes to a violent halt. Milia, jolted from her reverie, wonders if an accident has occurred. Outside, the coachman screams in terror as a monstrous entity attacks. Chaos ensues. Milia is thrown from the wreckage or flees into the woods, finding herself face to face with a terrifying wolf-like beast with gaping jaws. As the monster lunges, Milia squeezes her eyes shut, accepting that her life might end here in this desolate forest. Suddenly, a blade slices through the air. A tall, imposing figure intervenes, striking the monster down with a powerful swing of his sword. The rescuer stands panting, blood soaking his coat, having saved her from certain death. The stranger, a man dressed in a fine but worn military coat, sheathes his sword and commands her to leave immediately, warning that the area is dangerous. Milia, still in shock, calls out to him, but he turns away. However, as he glances back, recognition flashes in his eyes beneath the mask he wears. He whispers her name, Milia, in disbelief. Milia awakens later in a lavish but slightly aged bedroom. She looks around, disoriented, asking where she is. The man who saved her stands by the door, his face obscured by a white mask that covers the upper half of his features. He informs her that she is in his domain and apologizes for keeping the mask on due to unavoidable circumstances. Milia, recalling the events in the forest, realizes he is the one who saved her and even treated her wounds while she was unconscious. She looks at him with gentle gratitude, stating firmly that she is not afraid of him, despite his attempts to keep his distance. The masked lord questions why she was in such a perilous place, known to be crawling with monsters. Milia introduces herself and explains she was en route to the Maria monastery. She inquires about her coachman, hoping he escaped, but the lord admits that when he found her, there was no one else nearby, leaving the coachman's fate grimly ambiguous. Despite the tragedy, Milia bows her head and thanks him profusely for his protection. The lord, maintaining a stoic distance, tells her that once she heals, he will arrange for her transport to the monastery. As he turns to leave, advising her to rest, he pauses, seemingly overwhelmed by her presence. Alone in the room, Milia observes his retreating figure, thinking to herself that despite his mysterious appearance, he is a truly kind person. Days pass, and a domestic routine settles between them. Milia and the masked lord share tea by a window. He insists she rest, reminding her that the doctor prescribed a few weeks for full recovery. Milia, feeling like a burden, apologizes for the trouble and offers to pay for her lodging, but the lord dismisses it as unnecessary. He sips his tea, his masked face betraying a hint of comfort in her company. A week later, Milia begins to walk with a crutch, testing her healing leg. She stumbles, swaying precariously, and the lord instantly is there to support her. He asks with concern if it still hurts. Milia admits the pain is there but remarks with a heartbreaking resilience that she is used to this level of pain, implying a history of physical suffering. The Lord looks at her with a mixture of pity and admiration. As she regains her balance, Milia realizes she cannot stay forever and must leave soon to avoid being a burden. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hits her, and she collapses forward. The Lord catches her in his arms. He holds her close, his mask brushing near her, and self-consciously asks if she hates being touched by a creepy man like him. Milia, looking up at him, whispers a question that has been forming in her mind. She asks why he called her Millie back in the forest. The Lord freezes. He realizes his slip-up. He tries to deflect, claiming she misheard or that he should not have spoken so familiarly, and abruptly creates distance between them, citing that he must report to the Emperor about the attack. Meanwhile, back at the royal palace, the atmosphere is toxic. Marietta is in a rage, biting her thumb in frustration as she paces her room. She complains that an old hag snitched on them, causing the Emperor to be angry with her and Sieg. A maid enters with a letter for Marietta. The letter confirms that their plan to abandon Milia in the cursed forest on the northern route was carried out. Marietta reads it with a vicious satisfaction, but then receives news that the coachman failed to confirm Milia's death, and that she was likely rescued by a man living in a nearby old castle. Marietta's face contorts with jealousy and hatred. She screams that it is unforgivable for Milia to survive. She rants about how Milia always stole the spotlight, being beautiful, smart, and popular at the academy, making Marietta's existence feel annoying by comparison. Consumed by malice, Marietta crumples the letter and vows to destroy Milia completely. Back at the castle, Milia has recovered enough to walk without crutches. She wanders the grounds and discovers a beautiful glass greenhouse. Stepping inside, she is greeted by a breathtaking sight. The entire space is filled with blooming pink margarettes. The sight triggers a rush of memories. She recalls the flower crown from her childhood and the boy who gave it to her. The meaning of the flowers, true love, echoes in her mind. The masked lord appears behind her, surprised to find her there. Milia turns to him, tears welling in her eyes. She tells him about her kind fiancé from 10 years ago who made her a crown of these exact flowers and told her their meaning. She looks directly at him, seeing past the mask, and tells him that he reminds her of that boy. The Lord turns away, denying the connection and insisting she is mistaken. Before he can escape the conversation, a shrill voice pierces the air. Marietta has arrived, accompanied by armed assassins. She screams, "Found you!" and orders her men to kill Milia. An assassin lunges at Milia with a dagger. The masked lord throws himself in front of Milia, intercepting the attack. The blade strikes him, and the impact shatters his mask, sending pieces flying. The lord turns to face the attackers, his face now exposed. A massive, dark, vein-like birthmark covers a significant portion of his face, scarring his features. Marietta recoils in disgust, calling the mark hideous. The lord, revealed to be Prince Alistair, ignores the insult and focuses on protecting Milia. He draws his sword, despite his injury, and stands his ground. Milia, seeing his face, does not flinch. She asks him why he didn't tell her who he was. Alistair, shame coloring his voice, admits he didn't want to be separated from her again but feared she would be disgusted by his cursed appearance. He confesses that he is now a hideous man, compared to the boy she knew. Milia interrupts him, declaring firmly that she would never feel that way. She tells him he is still the same strong, kind person she loved. Tears stream down Alistair's scarred face as Milia reaffirms her feelings. She asks him to stay by her side, confessing that she has loved him for 10 years. Alistair, moved by her unwavering acceptance, replies that he has never once forgotten her. He admits he has loved her unchanged since the day he gave her the flowers. As their feelings are laid bare, a miraculous light begins to glow around Alistair. Milia notices that the dark mark on his face is fading. The curse, anchored by despair and malice, is shattering under the weight of their mutual, genuine love. Alistair realizes the curse is not contagious as he once feared, and asks if he may touch her. He leans in, and they share a tender kiss, reuniting after a decade of separation. When they part, Alistair's face is completely healed, the scar vanished without a trace. He looks at Milia with wonder, telling her that she made this miracle happen. The scene shifts to the royal palace, where justice is finally served. The emperor stands before the court, with Alistair and Milia by his side. The truth of the curse is revealed. It was never a disease, but a spell cast by a sorcerer at the Empress's behest to steal Alistair's birthright. The curse stole 10 years of Alistair's life, but now that he is freed by true love, the magic has rebounded onto its originators. The Empress and Sieg are shown writhing on the floor, the dark, vein-like marks now spreading across their own faces. They scream in horror, begging for mercy. The Emperor decrees that with this proof of their treachery, both the Empress and Sieg are removed from the royal family and exiled from the country. Marietta, seeing the tide turn, immediately recoils from Sieg, calling him a monster, and refusing to marry him now that he is disfigured. In a desperate attempt to salvage her status, she rushes towards Alistair, putting on a sickeningly sweet persona. She claims that she is Milia's stepsister and lies that Milia is actually mean. She tries to present herself as a victim, hoping to seduce the newly restored crown prince. Alistair looks at her with cold contempt. He declares that lies will not work on him. Marietta, panicking, tries to twist the logic of the curse, suggesting that if true love broke it, then Alistair should love her instead. Alistair dismisses her utterly, stating he could never love someone who hurt Milia. He affirms that Milia is a kind and wise woman, and Marietta will pay the price for her cruelty. Milia stands beside Alistair, confident and loved, while Marietta is left humiliated and rejected. The narration confirms the final fate of the villains. The Empress and Sieg are exiled, and Marietta faces a life of suffering for her attempted assassination and deceit. In the aftermath, Alistair, who overcame the curse, is reinstated as the crown prince. Milia, the woman who saved him with her heart, becomes the crown princess. The story concludes with the two of them embracing, ready to live a life of happiness that was delayed but not denied, known forever as a couple who upheld true love for the rest of their days. The world brimmed with the presence of many sorcerers, wielding powers that defied understanding. However, humanity's all quickly curdled into terror, leading the populace to fear this power and hunt the magic wielders down, extinguishing them one after another until almost none remained in existence. In the present era, within the cold, imposing walls of the noble house of Hastings in the north, a piercing voice shatters the silence, summoning Abigail Hastings with impatient ferocity. Abigail, a young woman with a patch over one eye, flinches from her task of cleaning the back entrance as her stepsister, Claudia, looms over her, demanding to know why she failed to appear immediately upon being called. Abigail lowers her head in submission, apologizing to Miss Claudia, identifying herself merely as the daughter of the Hastings family but treated far worse. Claudia's mother intervenes, dismissing Abigail's status by sneering that she is merely the daughter of a witch, and commands her not to talk back to Claudia. The matriarch laments that they would have executed Abigail long ago if they could, expressing disdain that even though she is a witch's spawn, she cannot utilize a single spell. Claudia, twirling a riding crop, remarks that there is no need to bully Abigail so overtly, though she dismisses the girl as troublesome. The servants gossip in the background, terrified that upsetting Claudia will bring her wrath down upon them as well. Claudia issues a new directive, ordering Abigail to guard the prisoner they captured the previous night. Abigail hesitates, stammering at the thought of guarding a criminal, but the other maids mock her, laughing that everyone else is too terrified to go near the captive. Claudia threatens that if Abigail cannot follow orders, she will be thrown out of the mansion immediately, a terrifying prospect for Abigail, who has never once left the estate. Resigned to her fate, Abigail approaches the cell, wondering what kind of terrifying thief awaits her. She knows that outside the mansion walls, the daughter of a witch would surely be killed, making her servitude her only safety. Peering through the iron bars, Abigail encounters the prisoner, a blond man named David, who sits casually on the floor despite his injuries. He looks up with a roguish smile, commenting on the lovely little jailer that has been sent to him. Abigail gasps, noticing the blood soaking his shirt and realizes he is badly hurt. David attempts to brush off the concern, but his gentle voice surprises Abigail, who expected a monster. Without hesitation, Abigail declares she must treat his wounds immediately and promises to return with medicine, turning to run before he can protest. When she returns to tend to him, David asks for her name, remarking that she is a strange jailer for helping a criminal like him. She introduces herself as Abigail, the technically eldest daughter of the house. David questions why a daughter of the noble Hastings family would be treated this way. Abigail tightens the bandage on his arm, explaining that she has no authority and is treated no better than a servant because her mother was a witch. She reveals that her mother was executed when she was very young, leaving Abigail as the only sorcerer left in the world. David's expression shifts to intense seriousness as he realizes who she is, stating that he heard the last which was in this region and came searching for her. Abigail recoils, assuming he is trying to trick her since she believes all sorcerers were wiped out. To prove his identity, David activates his magic, filling the dank cell with floating lights and flowers. Tears well in Abigail's eyes as she witnesses the magic, remembering her mother doing the same, and she expresses relief that she is not the only one alive. From that day forward, Abigail visits the prison daily, treating David's wounds while he entertains her with displays of magic. These stolen moments become peaceful and full of joy for Abigail, unlike anything she has experienced before. She begins to wish for a closeness that is not separated by iron bars, desiring to be with David more intimately. One day, as she lingers by the cell, she asks if his wounds still hurt. David admits to a dull ache but insists he could bust out of the cell in no time if he weren't injured. To comfort him, Abigail begins to hum a song her mother used to sing to her, a melody about kings becoming slaves and rocks glittering like gemstones. David's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the lyrics. He identifies the song not as a lullaby, but as the reverse spell, a legendary incantation that turns the very laws of the world upside down, the most powerful magic known. He deduces that she truly is the daughter of the legendary wish. Abigail denies knowledge of the spell's power, explaining that her mother pretended to be human and seduced her father, only to be executed when her identity was exposed. David looks at her with compassion, stating that this prison is not where she belongs and urges her to escape with him. Abigail hesitates, fear gripping her as she argues that the outside world is full of people who hate sorcerers. She reasons that as long as she obeys the Hastings household, they will let her live, believing that survival is her only option. David counters gently, asking if following orders every day is really living, or if it is merely the same as being dead. David presses his hand against the bars, confessing that if it were him, he could never live like that. He uses his magic to conjure a specific flower, explaining that it only blooms on the southwestern peninsula. He describes a world of wonders, islands made of coral, shepherds in the morning mist, and the sunrise from the northern peaks, things Abigail has never seen. With a tender gaze, David wipes the tears from her face, telling her there are so many things he wants to show her and asks her to go with him. Moved by his offer and the promise of a life beyond servitude, Abigail agrees, stating she wants to be with him too. Their moment of connection is violently interrupted as the door bursts open. Claudia and the matriarch have discovered them. Claudia shrieks that David is a sorcerer and accuses them of suspicious behavior. The matriarch, enraged, orders the execution of both Abigail and David immediately. David shouts for them not to touch Abigail, unleashing a burst of magical energy that shatters the cell door. He grabs Abigail's hand, pulling her toward freedom as they rush past the stunned nobles. As they flee into the courtyard, the matriarch screams threats of death at them. In this moment of crisis, a memory surfaces in Abigail's mind, her mother telling her to remember the song for the moment she finds something she truly wants to protect. Realizing she is no longer alone and has David to fight for, Abigail decides to lend her strength to him. She begins to chant the lyrics of the song. Fish start swimming through the sky. Dreams blur into reality. Kings become slaves. David joins her, recognizing the power she is weaving, and describes it as the reverse of the reversed world. As Abigail finishes the chant with, "When the moon sets in the east, everything be turned upside down," a massive wave of magical energy is released. The spell slams into the Hastings estate. The pristine mansion begins to crack and wither, vines growing rapidly over the masonry as time and reality warp around them. The servants and family members look around in horror as the grand estate transforms instantly into overgrown ruins. The staff is confused, questioning if they ever even worked there, noting the place looks like it fell into ruin ages ago. The matriarch, clutching her daughter in the wreckage, realizes with horror that the spell has been broken. She reveals the dark truth. The Hastings family had actually fallen into ruin long ago, and they had used the power of Abigail's mother, the reverse switch, to undo their downfall and maintain their illusion of wealth and status. They had kept the spell active by disposing of the witch but trapping her daughter, ensuring the magic would never break. Now, with the spell shattered by Abigail herself, the illusion is stripped away. In the midst of the ruins, Abigail and David stand transformed, dressed in elegant, magical attire that signifies their true power. The servants gaze at them in awe, calling Abigail beautiful and recognizing David as a sorcerer. David holds Abigail close, asking if she is all right. Abigail smiles radiantly, declaring that she is not afraid anymore because she knows she is not alone. Free from the shackles of her family and the fear of the world, Abigail and David embrace their destiny. The two sorcerers, now united, fly off together into the starlit sky, leaving the ruins of the past behind them forever.